All right, well, we don't want to aggravate you. Okay, so if you got questions, put up your hand. And the thing we will tell you is that sometimes Gary has a hard time hearing out in groups like this. So make sure that you speak out loud. And the other thing we would all appreciate is realize that people our age, we can't whisper. Okay, you may think you can whisper, we really can't. So don't try whispering to the guy next to you or the lady next to you. We'll stop the whispering because that makes it hard for everybody to hear, not just Gary, but it'll make things go a lot smoother and easier. I'm going to sit probably over there, and if I can help you with anything, I'll be there.
This is in Turkey.
I will. I'll do my best to interpret.
It sounds like some kind of foreign language.
Okay, I'll do what I can.
All right, thanks. I'll tell you what we're going to do. First thing we're not going outside. I'm going to set this up. We're going to play like this is a double deep when you come up to it. And I like to have 2 extra boxes. Empty box. This box here's got 20 frames of bees and everything in it. And then I've got this box. All right. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top box off, and then I'm going to set it on my outer cover. And I've got a little butler stand here. When you get old, bending over hurts you.
Oh, that's nice.
So I got my outer cover on there, and I split this box off. Put her on there. So chances are, that's the first box I'm going through. And if I find that queen in the top box, that makes the bottom one a whole lot easier to go through. So I'm going to start on the side. And I'm going to take out a frame of honey. I'm going to put 1 frame of honey in this box. I'm going to put 1. Now this box has bees in it. And then the next frame, if it also has honey, well, I'll put it in this box. And I'll go through. Now at the same time, I'm looking for this queen. Because most of the time she'll be in the top box. But most of the time only concerns 51%. I'll go through that whole box and sort them out. I mean, honey, pollen, brood, and if it's a full frame of brood and the next one's a half frame, maybe I'll give this one a full frame and this one 2 half frames. Oh! And then I found the queen. No, I didn't. It was a drone. So anyway, I go through that box. Well, wasn't no queen in it. I was looking a little bit hasty. So now I have an opportunity. I can go through virtually maybe 5 or 6 frames here, maybe 5 or 6 frames here, and look for her again, or I can trust my intuition. Like, nah, I never missed her. So we're done with that. So now I'm going to go ahead and go through the bottom box, and I do it exactly the same way. And my intuition was right. She was in the bottom box.
There she is.
I knew she was in the top. Did I say top box? I did, didn't I? But you'll find them, and I'm serious about that 51%. About the time you think you've got it down pat, it'll burn you every time. But then I'll go through that. Now, okay, so I found the queen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her a Hail Mary and wish her better luck. And then I'm going to put tomorrow, I'm going to put a queen cell in this box and a queen cell in this box. Now I got control. I've got control. I know where what is and when it's going to emerge. I know how to treat this box and how to treat this one. If you don't find the queen, I don't know, Jim and I was talking, that can be a dirty split, a walkaway split, I don't know. They call them different things, but some people probably have a little bit of a twist that makes it maybe a little bit different. But basically, it's the same thing as what I've just described to you here. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Do you save your queens? Jason was talking about using as a lure. You save all your queens?
Oh, the dead queen?
Yeah.
I do. I put them in a little thing of alcohol, just kind of make like a little queen pheromone tincture.
I can't say anything good or bad about that. If I could, I would.
Hey, there's swarms in the boxes sometimes.
Yeah.
What happens to, you've got two boxes now with all your bees in there, but I noticed this one here, I still see some bees walking around in here. This empty box, it doesn't have any frames in it now. And the other thing is, what about all your foragers that are coming and going now?
I got them sitting side by side. I don't worry about it. Now, tomorrow when I go back to put the queen cells in, good point, Jim, appreciate that. If this box happened to collect a whole lot, and it's visible, you can leave them where they're at, or you can switch places with them. Now, what I prefer to do is just maybe take out a frame over here that has a little bit of brood on it, take out a frame over here that has a lot of brood on it, and just switch that. Leave the bee population alone and don't worry about it. But that's what I do. Now you can haul them away and do it, but I mean I just leave them right there, right side by side.
I got a question. What if you find the queen and you still separate them like that, but what if you also find queen cells?
What if you find queen cells while you're going through there?
99% of the time I'll cut those queen cells out.
Just cut them out?
Yeah.
Because you got your own queens.
Yeah.
But what-
because I like to be in control.
Right. But what if you don't have any queens to put in each box?
Well, then you're at the mercy of what you've got.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would eliminate all the cells except for, and wow, now that Karen Ferguson brought 2 cells tonight. One of them was a great big old long cell, about that long. Oh, it's got to have a good queen in it. Wrong. You still got it? Yeah. I've seen those before, and they don't produce nothing really, not even a poor queen. But anyway, you try to pick out where you've got 2 good cells in each of these boxes if you want. But I would definitely, yeah, look at that.
Look at that thing. That was a swarm, in this position of a swarm cell.
That's a peanut.
That's the reason why I brought it.
Yeah.
There.
There's 2 of them in there.
Twins.
Yeah. But, at least that way you're in control. Now, a lot of people they just find it horrible to kill a queen or get rid of whatever. So if you're that soft-hearted, just take a frame of brood and a couple shakes of bees and put her over here by herself. And then once things get, I heard that. Once things get going, you can put a couple more frames with her or whatever. She was last year's queen, and the reason that I try to requeen annually is because I'm always trying better stuff with my breeder queens. As long as my breeder queens are performing good, then that's what I would like to have my hive in my hives. So that's what I do. Now, I don't get everything requeened every year, and then there's a few that I don't want to. That if they have low mite counts in the fall, those are earmarked to keep for next spring's drone production. So I can propagate more drones out of those hives. It's a lot of work. Most times I don't get it all done like I want to, but that's what I can get.
What time of year do you split?
Good idea about that now. Anything from a month ago, if I thought that it was going to be more productive for me to split these hives, put fresh queen cells in, I'd say a month ago, well, let's say end of fruit bloom, and you're having trouble with queen cells, end of fruit bloom, you could split that, and you're gonna have, if you're having trouble with queen cells, hopefully, unless it's a PP queen, you're gonna have probably about 8 or 10 frames with brood on it in this double D. Okay, well then whenever you split that up, well, you've got 4 or 5 good frames of brood. Guess what? That's enough, they'll make you honey. You can put a queen cell in there right after fruit bloom, and while that queen's getting back being mated, and you got it super with a honey super, you don't have to use a queen excluder then. Single D, queen's being mated, no queen excluder. They'll start storing nectar in that. And chances are, by the time that new queen gets back and everything, because the bees won't lay down as long as there's a good queen cell in there, they could, and probably make you 2 supers of honey. Probably make you 2 supers of honey. And that's as much as average year, most people hope to get off with double D. So it works. It works down here if you do it right after fruit bloom. So that was, and then you can do it, I do most of mine the 1st of July. 1st of July. And now all of this coincides with the summer solstice that my buddy Nisa Cohen, he's a good old boy. And he was the one who wrote the book there on the spot queening. We've had him down here to speak to the group. There it is, numerous times. And all right. So now, if you found the queen in one of these, and you want, and you so desire, you can just leave that queen. You can come back 4 days later. That's what you can do. Come back 4 days later, and the box that has eggs in it, and if they're sitting side by side, it's going to be the box that's most heavily populated also. And then you can just allow this box to requeen itself, because there's ample bees there to make a quality queen. That's what it's all about, having enough bees to make quality queens. So you can't hardly mess it up. I don't think you can.
What about us new people? We can mess it up.
No, you can't, Dan. No. If you do that like I'm telling you, you can't mess it up. I'll get you next, yeah.
So if there are queen cells in the hive, and then you're killing those queen cells and putting your own queen cell in, like you did, they were planning to swarm. So will they still swarm when that queen comes out? Do they ever swarm? They never do.
What did you say? I was like this, when you said never.
But that does hinder them from swarming if you put a new queen cell in there yourself.
If you need to eliminate all of those queen cells.
What if I miss one?
Huh?
What if I miss one?
One won't be too bad. But if you missed a couple that's staggered in time, there's a good possibility you could end up losing a prime swarm out of a single bee.
Follow up. How hard is it to get queen cells from anybody at that time of year, say a month ago?
Well, it's not too hard if you'll look ahead and say, Garry, in about 3 weeks I'm going to need, and I'll get you queen cells. But yeah, I've sold several hundred. 350. I'm grafting it into something. So yeah.
I'd like to add to that. So
How
go
many
ahead.
bees is enough bees? 3 frames of bees to make a queen?
That's 4 frames, four good frames and a couple shakes. You got it. But 3 frames, I can't go along with that either.
to make a queen, like to draw out a queen cell, to support a queen. Is that what you want?
Yeah. Not a quality queen, because they're not just gonna draw one cell out. What they're gonna do, they might start 15 or 20. Now, I have seen, I was telling Jimmy this earlier, I have seen where I'll pull out, 2 nice frames of foundation, starting to knit, honey, pollen, shake or 2 of bees, and put a queen cell in it. Well, then I go back about the time that queen should be laying, and if it was what we call a blow, if it never worked, they would have started all these queen cells, but whenever I'm tearing those down, they're watery looking. It's not just thick royal jelly. So, that tells me that they're not doing a good job making queens. And that's with just 2 frames. That's with just 2 frames. Now, 3 frames would be just a little bit better, but I wouldn't do it. I won't do it.
Does the Reynolds book say you need to have 7 to 8 frames of good 6 or 7? I was thinking somewhere in there that you were saying that's what his
I don't-
book said.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, there's a book, somebody look at that. I think
Look up how many frames of bees you need to raise queen cells.
start the thing.
I'm just trying to look at this, I don't know where to look.
No, it's not on this.
I'm saying 4.
Well,
At least
I remember
4
Mel,
frames to make a queen cell?
when,
At least 4 frames to make it, to make a queen cell, is that what we're saying? I mean, I like a whole hive to make queen
Splits?
cells
Yeah.
for splits.
Yeah, doesn't he split them so he takes the queen out, notches, and then he does his splits.
Yeah,
After 10 days
Yeah,
ago.
right,
Yeah.
right.
The whole hive raises multiple
Yeah.
cells here
Yeah,
in this system.
yes.
Well, she asked me a question. She was
yeah.
expanding on the parameter. But yeah, we can talk about Mel's system, and he's got the double D. We'll go back. We'll set. What's that doing over there?
That's in the way.
We're going to take the top part of this double D and set it on my outer cover. We're going to go through it and see if we can find a queen. This time we found a queen in the top box. So our work is done. We take her, put her in that nuke box over there, Jim. She'll be fine. Yeah, here's another frame or 2. Okay, now that queen's gone. She's gone. So we'll set this right back up on there. Come on, girls. All we got to do now is go through it and find frames with eggs and larvae. And if we can find at least 5 different frames, we can start 5 nukes out of this. Wow. Yeah. Now it has to be a chicken hive. It can't be just some mediocre something that's gonna maybe make honey next year, maybe it won't. But it has to be a good hive. And I'll tell you another secret too. If you've got all old black comb, you'll get very few queen cells. Bees hate, the queen loves to lay in them old dark comb. She really does. But the queens hate to pull them out for queen cells. Time and time again that I've done on the spot queening, you'll find the queen cells, even though that thing's full of eggs and larvae, just the right age stuff, they still prefer the softer wax, the new wax. So what you want to do is try to find different frames. There's no need to mark, to break down or notch the cell walls on one frame 5 times. There's no need to do that. No need. Because all you need on that one frame is 1 or 2 cells. If I've got 1 good cell, I'm happy. Because now when I come back in 8-9 days, I'm gonna go through this. This is after I went through this box, notching all those, like Mel said, in the whole deep box. Because this whole deep box, it can raise 30, 40 good queens. You've got the whole variety of bees. You've got the nurse bees, you've got the foragers, you've got the wax builders. And those nurse bees, you've got the ones that are just starting to develop the hypoarrhea gland, get that? And then once that's really developed, then they're capable of feeding queens. And they fill up those cups. And a queen cup is the same as the cups that I graft into, basically. But anyway, then I'll come back, like I said, 8-9 days later, and I'll have queen cells scattered all over here. So I'll go through the box, and I'll have me 5 nuke boxes set up. And it'll be a frame of honey, frame of pollen, right on down the line. And but all I gotta have is a frame that has 1 or 2 cells on it. Now, if it's got 6 cells on this side and 6 on the other, I ain't gonna play that game. I'll go ahead and cut them all out but 2. And that's good for that move, good for that move, right on down the line. And then at the end, you know, if I start 4 and already took a couple frames out, I'm gonna be a couple frames short on honey. So then I need to come up with some honey somewhere. And it wouldn't be any trouble for me, but it might for someone else.
Or sugar feed, right?
Pardon me?
Sugar feed. Feed them.
So understanding this.
Or feed them.
Oh, well, no. If you make this after June 21st, the summer solstice, you're going to have to feed them here in Southeast Indiana. And if you're not willing to feed these bees, if you're going to make this split and you're not willing to feed them, don't make the split because they ain't going to make it. You just wasted your time, killed a bunch of bees, and that's all there is to it.
And real quick, in case it just hasn't been stated, bees need nectar to draw comb. If there's no natural nectar or you're not feeding them, they have nothing.
Well, it'd be a very unusual summer if we had anything after June 21st. Yeah.
When you went through and you said there are 6 or 12 queen cells, and you cut out all but 2, what criteria do you use to decide which 2 to keep? Which 2 cells, why do you keep those cells? Is it just random, or what do you look for in the cells you want to keep?
A nice uniform queen cell. There ain't nothing uniform.
Big, nice, fat, meaty one, right? I mean, I like to see them big and pretty. Yeah. I mean, I guess if I see a big, pretty one or a little scrawny one, I'm probably picking the bigger one, right?
Yeah. And then there'll be the little, I call them buttons, that you got to be careful about because there'll be queens coming out of them too, and you need to go ahead and pluck those out. And sometimes I have cut off a lot of queen cells, especially if they're along the bottom, and be able to, I'd say I can probably say maybe as many as 80%, you know, just practice and seeing if that's what I want to do. So maybe, I mean, it'd be worth a try. If you only ended up with 3 frames in here that had queen cells on them, it'd be worth a try to cut a couple out and stick them in on a different frame. Yeah, you should get at least 4 starts out of a double B. Yes.
When you're notching frames, how many notches are you making on each side?
Not very many.
Well, you said you could end up with 6 queens on both sides of a board.
Well, sometimes they'll draw out queens where I didn't even think they would.
So how many notches do you make?
2. Yeah, probably 2.
2 on each side?
At least. What I do, at least 2. What I do is, remember, it's got to be a right-aged egg. It's got to be pretty young. So if I'm not sure, I might notch it in 3 places on one side. Like, yeah, them look like maybe them are 1-day-old eggs and them are 2-day-old eggs. And I'll do it 3 times on one side and 2 on the other. Just, it can't hurt.
No, because I mean it's a full-size colony. They can make a bunch of queens.
And the point is to just have some good selection of cells on each frame that you plan to start a nuke.
Now, are you putting those notches in the center?
Wherever them aged eggs are.
So wherever.
Yeah.
The thing that you wanna do is pay attention to what's going on. I mean, just to go out and do it, unfortunately, I was put on the chopping block the first time I ever did it.
You did fine.
It worked out perfect,
Absolutely.
by the grace of God and a lot of good luck. But what I would do is I would practice on doing this.
This Saturday,
But, yeah,
right?
He's got eggs and larvae. Now, you gotta be able to see eggs. You can't do this. I know a guy that really Schneidered me one time, and I never forgot it, and I never will forget it. I went back after it was done. The colony was queenless. There never was any eggs there. Couldn't put the egg nowhere. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, yeah. I can laugh about it now, but I never forgot it.
Just to circle this around, a couple things that for the typical beekeeper that has they've built up a nice strong double deep hive in the spring. I'm usually not making 5 splits. I might make definitely 1 split. I'll often split it just to keep it from swarming, but maybe 2. So and some people don't want any more. So you have a nice strong double deep of bees with all the amount of frames of brood that Garry says. I get 2 nuke boxes and I get my 2 frames with queen cells on it, and I put 3 frames of capped brood, or 4 if I got it, because that capped brood is what's just going to immediately emerge wherever you park that hive and be there to take over that hive and build it up quick.
Yep.
So I make 2 fat splits out of it.
And that's good. That's good. And then what you leave behind, it's going to take off good too.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where you put the foundation then?
So just stepping back where Garry was talking about, when you pull them deeps apart, you're going to separate the resources. And so are you trying to pull 2 splits out of it, or are you pulling 2 splits and keeping the original hive? Based on what resources you have in that hive, you want to understand what you're going to leave and what you have to take to make 2 meaty splits. So you're taking them, what Garry was describing as a dirty split. Don't matter where the queen is. Day 1, pull the boxes apart, separate the resources so that in both boxes you have brood in the center, good amount of honey and pollen and stuff on each side of it, put it back together, and then it'll all equalize. And then the next day you come out, you'll pull them back apart, just turn them 2 boxes put them on a bottom board and the lid's on top.
All right. Now, if someone's impatient,
That's my impatience.
and you want to buy queen cells, you can go to this hive, find that old queen, get rid of her, take and split these resources up evenly into 4 nuke boxes.
Yeah.
Put 4 queen cells in, you're in control.
And I do that. And I get my cells from Garry. I'd rather have a queen cell to put in there from him when I'm trying to increase. But for many of us, we don't want somebody, Stacy was just talking about, you don't want any more than 3 hives. Now.
Is that
For
that
now.
bee math?
Sorry.
Ask Gary about that. Hey,
Could you
Gary.
do the same thing to go from a single deep to a double deep? As far as splitting, or how do you make a double deep?
What's the question?
When you build up the splits,
How do you go from a single deep to a double deep hive?
Put another box in them.
I think he's talking about building it up in the spring, coming out of the winter.
Or could you do the same as you're making a split? Divide the resources and put half on the top and half on the bottom?
I usually don't put half, but I'll bring up a frame of cap brood. Jason was just talking about how important cap brood is. Then I'll bring up the frame of open brood, and then I'll checkerboard in those 2 empty frames of foundation in the bottom box. And now I've got cap brood and I've got open brood. The thing that's so important about that cap brood is that queen loves to lay once those girls in that cap come out, they make their bed, and that queen will run up there and lay in it. Plus then the ones over here that you already have open brood in, they're gonna be capped, and then they do the same thing before you know it. You can't tell the top box from the bottom box, but that's the way you do it. If you, for the fastest results. Otherwise, you can just sit it on there like I said, but bees hate it whenever their brood nest is split up, and whenever you put those two frames of foundation, providing there's nectar flow. We've already talked about it. If there ain't no nectar flow, they ain't pulling jack. I don't care if it's 100% pure wax. I don't care if it's unwaxed foundation or double waxed foundation. If there ain't no nectar flow, they ain't pulling. Simple as that. And I've got frames over here. Guys will come in here all the time and tell me, so my bees won't pull on that plastic. Oh, really? Let me tell you something. I got a piece of wax over here that looks just. The guy said, "Yeah, just like that." And then I always said, "That's wax." And I said, "So it is." I just went back and hung it up. But the more wax you have on them, the better you pull. Ain't no doubt about that. To a point.
Well, yeah. If you, I think it's just sometimes, you know, like the wax is all filtered stuff that they use. And sometimes I think it just has to do with it smells more like the hive.
Not only do they pull that one out, but they're able to use it someplace else.
Yeah.
Like on queen cells. All right. What other kind of splits we got, Mr. Long? That you'd like to talk about?
I'm going to tell you what I like to do, and you can tell me why it's wrong, or straighten me up on it. But what I like to do is when I find capped queen cells in my hive, then I have a decision to make. My decision is whether I'm going to find the queen and kill her, or put her over here in your nuke box, you know, with a couple frames, or sometimes I'll go through. Now this is with just my capped cells. I don't let them open cells. I don't do this. But with capped cells, I'll make a nucleus colony out of capped queen cells from my favorite hives. That way, if I lose the queen for whatever reason, I've still got more of that, and it may impede the swarming if that queen is over here. They tend to want to get into a supersedure mode. Doesn't work every time. You never say never and never say always.
I have done that on a limited, extremely limited basis. Maybe you could say 2-3%. But I have availability of queens and queen cells that I think most of the time is better than something natural. But those are my thoughts. But you know, to the average beekeeper, I mean, you know, that's a decent way to propagate and make colonies.
Plus, I can pull that queen off, throw in her nuke, let the hive requeen itself, and I can get a lot of honey now, because it's basically, you know, it's not going to be eaten. You know, I'm not feeding brood because it's going to have to requeen. So it can throw a lot of honey up in the super.
Yeah. That's true. I do that. I do that quite a bit. There's a L.E. Snelgrove. Jason said he'd heard of it. A few of them. He was back in the late 1800s or early 1900s. It's really insignificant at what time. But his principle, if you don't get his, even if you get his book, it's very difficult to understand exactly what he's talking about. But then you read about where other people have interpreted what he was doing and what he meant, and some of them are just way off base to what he intended. But what this amounts to is you go to a really strong colony before queen cell, long about fruit bloom, and you go to that colony, I mean, you can expect to have probably 10 frames of brood. Well, right along fruit bloom is when a lot of colonies build up enough before they start to swarm. And what you do is you go through that colony and you want to find the queen, or you go through the colony and you shake all the bees off. And you put these 10 frames of brood, 10 frames of brood in this one box. And then you have several frames that have nothing on them in the bottom box. Okay, well you shove everything into the bottom box, put a queen excluder. Now if you find a queen, you don't have to do that. But whenever we're on about fruit bloom, there's a lot of bees and she's hard to find, trust me. So if you shake them all into the bottom box, put a queen excluder down, put that second deep with all that brood in it, overnight, all those bees will come up. All those bees will come up. The drones even stay down because they can't get through the excluder. Well, the next day, now you've already had supers on this. Because all about fruit bloom, if you haven't got supers on, you're sucking hind tit, and you're going to be late. You're already late. If you don't have your supers on by the time fruit bloom, you're late, real late. So anyway, you've got a super on here, and then you take this off, and you set it off to the side, and you got your queen excluder down here, and the queen's below here. This is more than just super. I'll get to it in about an hour probably. But anyway, then you put that super that they've been working on, and then you put another empty super on, and then you put another super. So you got 3 supers on initially. Now, you set this on top of the 3 supers. That's the, now, on that Snelgrove board, it has different doors on the side. So all of these bees have always been used to going down and out, foraging, coming back and up. Okay, well after the 4th day, they're used to that pattern. So then you put on L.E. Snelgrove's board, and then you set this right back on top of it. And this is where the magic happens. This box is plumb full of bees, and it's going to be for about the next 21 days. And what you open up the door that lets them out, and they come out. When they go out foraging, they forage, and then they come back in the bottom entrance. So you're bleeding all these bees off the top. Well, they get pretty smart. After about 4 days, they get to where they go out that door, and they come in that door. So that's no longer working. So you close that one, but you open up the one to the bottom boxes. Got any questions on this? Clear as mud. Clear as mud, isn't it? But I tell you what, it sure works slick. Anyway, you close off the one where they was going in, but you open up the one to the main hive body that's just that much lower. Bees can tell one side to another, but they can't measure that much distance. Anyway, then you do that for 4 days. Well, they got used to this other entrance over there that you open up, so you got to close it and then open up another bottom entrance, and it goes round and round like that. Now, they will start queen cells up here because it's removed from the brood. They will start queen cells, bunches of queen cells, maybe. So after 8 days, you go through this box depending upon what you want to do. And here's what I do. I go through that box, destroy all the queen cells, because I still see lots of brood, lots of bees up there. So I destroy all those at that time. Now I put in my queen cell. I know when it's going to emerge. So I know I can't be jacking around with it whenever that new queen emerges, because 4 days after she emerges, she's going to fly out to get mated. Okay, so I can't be jacking around with these doors at that time. So anyway, what I do is you just leave one opening to this box. Everything else gets closed up. one and then she flies out and mates and comes back, and guess what? You still got a queen down in the bottom box doing her job. And now you've got a split that never cost you hardly nothing. Plus you bled all the bees off, now they're making you a ton of honey.
So the moral of the story is, if you know what the bees are doing, you read them and you understand them, you can manipulate them.
Yeah.
So I mean, for the most of us, just paying attention to the basics, understanding the number of days it takes from an egg to an emerged cell, be it a queen, drone, or worker. I mean, that's all important information that when you really understand and you're watching, you can do a lot of crazy cool things with your bees.
Well, is there anybody in here that can't read? No, never mind. Never mind. I wouldn't want to point somebody like that out. Now, I can't read the best. I even told my wife.
Oh, I think these might be yours.
Oh, no. I said, I can read a book.
Are them yours?
Are those mine?
Are them the ones you dropped at my house at maple season? I found them in the woods.
What were you drinking?
We were tapping maple trees.
Well, I can't, everything's a blur out there, but I can see it close now.
It must be yours.
They're yours now.
But I can, I told her, I said, I could read this book in one day, but I said it would take me 4 days to go back and understand what I've read. And there's lots of things, and it's so important to know and understand terminology. If you don't know and understand terminology, you're like somebody lost in the woods.
The Mel Dieselcone book is just superior, and I had to go back and read that often, and I consult it like a manual at this point.
Well, whenever I first met Mel, Turkey Creek. Well, he was given a seminar in that room, and I thought, man, I like this. I really like it. Yeah, it was the first time we started making up the candy boards the way we make them now. Anyway, I thought, man, I don't understand this, don't understand that. So I got him. He started out the door. He had his briefcase and I said, well, what about this? And he said, and he stumbled around through it, and I said, well, I don't know what you mean about this. And he's trying to get out the door, and it wasn't happening. I had questions to ask that man. So finally he set his stuff down, and we talked for about 10 minutes. He said, I'm going to be late. I said, no, I don't care. You answered all my questions. And sure enough, it was easier talking to him than it was reading the book.
Yeah. And we've had him here a couple times, and I was going to suggest maybe we make him an offer for one of those June whatever meetings you're trying to fill. Pay him to come down and see us again. I think it's invaluable. We do have videos on our website of him being here doing our workshops in the back. But definitely all backyard beekeeper practical information that you can do free to cheap on your own if you just choose to understand the ideas in the book.
Gary, on the question about how many bees is strong enough to raise a queen,
Yeah.
on his diagram, he shows 6 frames of brood.
Oh.
And in here, he says he considers a strong colony to be strong enough for queen rearing a minimum of 4 frames of brood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Then
And he even
you're right.
Yeah.
Let's say 5.
So yeah, so 5's right in the middle. So.
yeah.
But
And he even had a formula for a full capped frame of honey.
Mm-hmm.
He said he puts a monetary value on that. I think $90 or something. That the amount of bees that's going to make when the bees go up there and consume that honey and turn that frame into eggs, that's big money and
yeah.
very valuable to the hive.
Yeah. You had a question?
Yeah, so I'm very new to beekeeping, so don't laugh at the questions.
That's okay. We all have to learn that.
So I have 3 hives right now. I have a family, so I don't want to get into like multiplying my hives necessarily. So what would be the advantage of do I need to do a split, and what would be the advantage of my doing a split like this? I'm not necessarily interested in
got 3 colonies and she wants to keep 3 colonies.
Right.
She wants to take 3 colonies in the winter. She wants to come out with spring with 3 colonies. Why would she want to make splits from what she's got from her 3 colonies?
Well,
What would I do with the split?
She wants to know what she would do with the split since she wants to go into winter with 3 colonies.
well, I know we've been called 4 stupid men.
Yeah, I got called that.
But I wouldn't do that to her. Most of the time, people want more bees.
Right.
Now,
I don't have time to, I have 3 kids, I have a family, I just don't have a lot of time to devote to bee hives.
okay, why don't you just try this? Just try splitting 1 and go into the winter with 4 hives, because there could be a possibility that how many winters have you had bees?
I'm really just over this past one. I got a couple swarms from people last year, so this is really my first year of overwintering and making it through.
Do you have a good mite program in place?
I think so. I guess.
Well,
I think so.
We got alcohol wash kits up
I
here.
do have that. Yeah, I've done that, and I have the oxalic acid. I'm doing some stuff with that, so I think I have that. Do I need to do splits? I guess I'm interested in the philosophy
Shouldn't she have
of
one
it.
nuke for 3 hives?
She's still wondering if she needs to do splits, and I would think that she wouldn't necessarily need to do splits, but she might need a nuke. So she could split off a nuke this time of year, so she always had a nucleus colony to have an extra queen.
And I think she could use some of this information to do her own requeening. By make some new queen, take your queen out in a nuke box, and then use Mel Diesel comes method, or however, whatever method you want, but have your hive make a new queen, so you have a fresh lady there, and you're not, and I think the other thing is that'll help cut down on the possibility of a swarm.
I require my newbies, I do everything I can to get them to learn how to make their own nucleus colony. So you have a backup queen. Those 3 colonies that you want to take into wintertime, something is going to go wrong. Okay? One of those queens, they're fine now, but they're going to have to requeen themselves. Sooner or later, they'll requeen themselves. Sooner or later, a bird is going to eat your queen while she's out on the mating flight, and you're going to have a queenless colony.
Sooner or later, you're gonna smash her accidentally.
You'll smash her accidentally. Something will go wrong, or you paint her like Andy does, and that made a mess out of it anyway. You kill the queen with paint, Andy. You paint the top of the queen, not the bottom. I know. Well, anyway. Yeah, she's laying over here on the ground. So you have a nucleus colony that you've made, so now you understand the process that the bees are going through. You also have a backup queen. You can maintain that as a nucleus colony all summer long if you want to. You can take a capped brood out and put it in one of your other hives, whatever you want to do, as long as you're controlling your mite populations. But that nuke is your ace in the hole. That means you don't have to go running to Garry to buy a queen when you find out that a bird ate your queen on the mating flight.
And he just sold his last one. Or it's too late,
I'm
or
sorry.
too late.
It's Garry's bird.
It's something to put on that is from experience, you'll go into a hive in October and you'll have a queenless hive. And Garry probably doesn't have a whole lot of queens in October or early November. So if you got a nuke, you always got one in your pocket. So.
And she's already mated.
Yeah, she's already mated, because you can't get them mated then.
In that nucleus colony.
Yeah, you have to get a mated queen late in the year.
Yeah, or you got the meanest hive you've ever gone into, and it lights you up every time you go into it. You can pinch her and put that new queen in and calm it down.
Just call Mike, he likes
Well,
hives, he'll come get her.
Let me tell you some cold, hard facts. A second-year beekeeper going into a winter with 3 hives, I hope I'm wrong, for your sake, but you'll be lucky to come out with 1. cold hard facts.
Stacy's
Those are-
actually she's been doing bite washes though. She's been
Yeah.
We have
Those
some-
are- Those are average facts.
Yeah.
Now, for you to have better than average facts, you've gotta be a better than average second-year beekeeper. And that can happen.
Yeah, what we find is people, you know, for lack of time or whatever, will not get to the washes. And, you know, definitely understand people are busy, but if you're not doing the washes, then you're not taking it serious enough to make the decisions if you have to
Well,
treat or not treat.
Here's another problem with the washes. Okay, well, you haven't had mites, you haven't had mites, or at least not enough to deal with. Then all of a sudden you got mites and it's like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?
You're saying that they shouldn't be sick in the first place.
And by a week later, you know, you've got at least one or two more mites per 100 than what you had in the wash that got you in trouble. So it's very, very important to have a plan in effect ahead of time what you're gonna do when your mite load gets high. Because I'm telling you, each and every one of you out here, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. If you don't do anything, or if you do very little, you're gonna end up with high mite loads in the fall, and your bees, another thing too, your biggest, strongest colonies, they're gonna be dead by November if you don't do something about the mites. This is experience. There was one year I lost 40%. The next year I'm seeing the same thing. What is it? You know, big, strong, heavy, I mean, heavy. And they were headed down the same road. I got me some Apivar that year. And most of them made out. I think I ended up with like 15. I don't know. Anything I'd tell you would probably be just speculation. But now, last year and the year before that, my losses on like 100 hives was 6% and 7% respectively. Now, last year, I laxed off a little bit, wasn't doing the washes, didn't put the Apivar in the way I should have. Takes 4 strips and a double deep. That's what it takes. And if you cheat the pocketbook, you're gonna pay the price in the spring. Guess what I lost this spring? 13%. Jim lost 13 bees, or 13 colonies.
15 colonies.
Oh,
15.
oh. But anyway, you don't figure how many colonies you lose. It's a percentage. The percentages is what you've got to figure. If you had 2 hives, you lose 1, you lost 50% of your bees. So, I know a lot of people don't like to hear this stuff, but I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth the best I know it. All right, any more questions? I don't blame you, I wouldn't ask this old man any questions. He's gonna bite your head off.
Scared? No, he ain't scared.
I ain't scared. No, this is. Have you ever just pulled the queen to increase honey production?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pull that queen and actually put a queen cell in, because they're gonna make one, and mine's gonna, and it's only 3 weeks there, but I tell you what, that 3 weeks from right now, if you did it, you could expect probably to get another super or 2 of honey on a strong colony. I'm serious.
I know.
Well,
You mentioned the summer solstice, but I don't think we got to why it's important. Why is that important?
Mel Diesel couldn't said it was.
Well, he says that for, if you do a queen after the summer solstice, next spring she'll think she's a brand new queen, chances are she won't swarm.
Yeah, she'll come out acting like a brand new queen.
One, she'll build up a good strong hive to go through the winter with.
Yes.
Cause she's fresh and laying like gangbusters, but she only does that for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So you get a strong hive going into winter that can support itself hopefully through winter if it's not got mites.
Right.
And then in the spring
I got your question. Can you hold on just a minute? Okay. What about when an old queen swarms out, and then she lands in that in whatever, and you go and you think, my God, you know, that can't be an old queen laying like that. But sometimes it is. They can just baffle you on how much an old queen can lay. It does me.
But a lot of times, it's been my experience, it's like a swarm has like a desperation about it that I can't really explain. And the the queen goes right along with that, and it's just like a last big push. So sometimes you'll have an old queen laying like gangbusters, and then the next time you look, it's not so good anymore. She's hit and miss, and there's drone cells in yeah.
I got this little lady back here.
So, like I said, I'm new. Are there any tips or tricks for spotting the queen, or is that like I'm having trouble finding an unmarked queen? Are there any tips, or I just have to get used to that, used to finding the queen?
Who's your mentor?
Me.
That's a question you have to take up with your mentor. or you make up your own mind, whichever.
Let take him because I think he's going to address that
I was
question.
going to address your question. So I used to have a hard time when I first started spotting the queen. So I did this thing that you should never do. Watch YouTube videos of people finding the queen. And I just watch those, and what happens is you basically are just training your eye on what to see. And after I did that, and I'd go back and watch same videos, a couple different ones, multiple times. And then you'll be surprised that all of a sudden you'll just pick it up because you've trained your eyes on what to look for. And it's like finding Waldo. Once you do it, it just becomes real quick. The queen always walks like she has purpose. I always tell people that. She's the one in the crowd. She's the guy going to the beer stand. Everybody else, she's just going right through them. And you'll notice the workers actually get out of her way, and if she stops, they'll bullseye her. So it's just getting time of seeing it.
When they say look for the queen, I don't think you're really looking. You're more like scanning.
Yeah, you just kind of scan.
And oftentimes she's like underneath where there's holes going between the, inside the frame bars, underneath that comb, or hiding in a crevice or something. So you could go look right over.
I think as soon as she sees the light of day, because she lives in the dark all
Yeah.
the time.
And the minute I see her, she gets marked.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my pen right there next to me all the time. That's me.
Yeah.
So you said you change your queens every year. You requeen every year.
Well, I try to.
So the things that I remember reading was that this queen in the second year is more productive usually than in the first year. Is that not the case?
I don't know. I can't prove that.
How are we going to know?
I'm still looking for better queens overall.
Well,
And if I've got better queens overall, I'm producing better drones overall, and in theory, everything gets a little better.
but Mel tells you to make them queens late and have a fresh one coming into the next season. So if that counts for year 2, that's when she's supposed to be in her prime.
But then now as you requeen again the following spring.
And he's got a whole regimen. At the end of all this, he has like 15 nukes to sell.
Within a couple months of each other, because you hit it at the beginning of April here, and then you hit it again at the summer solstice. So you're requeening twice in one summer.
Yeah.
And he's making nukes to sell. Like how many? When he came and did that presentation, he showed the truckload of how many?
150.
And I was
Takes
thinking 15.
No, Mel Diesel he said he would take, and I may have read this, 50 hives and make 100, turn that into 200 and sell 150 hives off, or nukes off.
And he uses that to offset the hobby.
So if you're doing that, you got to have queens that are really getting it, building up, and you got to know what you're doing. So.
But he runs primarily for building nukes. He doesn't,
Yes.
he doesn't run honey production. He does
That's a good point.
personal use honey production, not selling.
Right. That's a good point. That's when he made the comment about a frame of honey is worth $90. I ain't giving that. I ain't eating it.
Yeah, Dan.
Have you noticed anything on the side of the queen, like a bigger queen produces better than a smaller one? Because I've got a smaller one that sits out producing anything I've got as far as brood, frames of brood.
The size of the queen, how important is it to you in selecting, you know, for a good quality queen, how important is the size? He has a queen at his place that's very small on the average when he looks at all the other queens. She's a small queen, but he says she's a good producer. And he's wondering if that's just like some kind of an anomaly, or if this is...
Well, I'm sure everyone's heard the old part, size matters. And that applies to queens also, typically. Now, a large queen is also easier to inseminate than a small queen.
Dan,
What's the little storage sac inside her that stores the semen? What's the name of that little? Spermatheca.
Yeah.
Okay. That gets larger when that's full.
Yeah.
So that would tend to make your queen larger after she's mated anyway, if she's fully mated.
Yeah.
Would it make any difference if she was partially mated to begin with anyway? I mean, if this queen's only a month or two old, she may be a great producer to begin with, but maybe not so much later on.
You never know.
I look for brood patterns. We all want to see big, broad frames of eggs or capped brood. And if that's not happening, Danny, like you're describing, she gets pinched. For me. What's that?
She just swallowed a wall, birds just swallowed a wall.
So you got a lot of brood.
Yeah.
Well,
She's out producing those bigger queens. I just wondered if that's a fluke or what, you know?
well, that's what the size doesn't matter in that regard. I mean, if it's a good looking brood pattern, I'm leaving it alone.
Grow some more.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I'd say keep an eye on that one.
Oh, I don't know.
So the queens, some of the queens that I got from Gary's that are, you know, from stock queen cells I got from 3 years ago that I know are still running my hives. I mean, of that stock, they're almost black. Easier to find too.
Black is beautiful. Any more questions?
We're right at 1 hour. We're right at 1 hour.
I got bees to move tonight.
Got a little light left.
Home pretty soon.
Well, then let's wrap it up with questions. Any last questions? Well, thanks, Gary.